A life is worth exactly as much as the next one, or at least, that's what Dr. Kenzo Tenma wanted to believe until he realized he had just resurrected the devil itself. Imagine being the most talented surgeon in Germany, having the world at your feet, and then losing everything because you chose to follow your conscience. But the real tragedy isn't that Tenma lost his career, it's that the life he saved would go on to wash the entire world in blood. This is a story about a choice made in the dark that would haunt a man until the end of time. What would you do if you realized your greatest act of mercy was actually your greatest sin? The story takes place in West Germany, years before the fall of the Berlin Wall, a place of cold stone buildings and even colder hearts. Our protagonist is Dr. Kenzo Tenma, a Japanese neurosurgeon working at the prestigious Eisler Memorial Hospital in Dusseldorf. Tenma is more than just a doctor. He's a genius, a man who sees a human brain not as a lump of tissue, but as a delicate map of a person's soul. He has everything: a high-paying job, the respect of his peers, and he's even engaged to Eva Heinemann, the beautiful but manipulative daughter of the hospital director. To the outside world, Tenma is living the dream. But under the surface, the hospital is a political shark tank where lives are treated like currency, and Tenma is about to learn that in this world, some lives are considered more equal than others. Everything changes on a rainy night when a Turkish worker is brought into the ER with a severe head injury. Tenma is ready to operate, but at the last second, his superiors order him to switch cases. A famous opera singer has just arrived, and the hospital director wants the prestige of saving a celebrity. Tenma obeys, the opera singer lives, but the Turkish worker dies. When the man's widow screams in Tenma's face, accusing him of being a murderer, something inside him snaps. He realizes he didn't save a life, he followed a PR strategy. But he tells himself it won't happen again. He promises himself that the next time a choice has to be made, he will do what is right, no matter the cost. He didn't know that the universe was about to test that promise in the most horrific way possible. A few nights later, a twin boy and girl are rushed into the hospital. Their parents have been brutally murdered in their home, and the boy, Johan, has a bullet lodged in his brain. His sister, Anna, is in a state of total catatonia, staring into the abyss and muttering about a monster. Tenma prepares for the surgery, his hands steady, his mind focused. But then, history repeats itself. The mayor of Dusseldorf arrives at the hospital with a stroke, and the director orders Tenma to leave the boy and save the politician. This is the moment. This is the crossroads. Tenma looks at the dying child, a boy who has lost everything, and he looks at the director who only cares about headlines. For the first time in his life, Kenzo Tenma says no. He stays with the boy, performing a miracle of surgery that saves Johan's life, while the mayor dies under the care of less capable doctors. Tenma feels a sense of peace, believing he has finally reclaimed his integrity. But the world doesn't reward heroes, it punishes them. The director is furious. Eva breaks off the engagement with a cold sneer, and Tenma is stripped of his promotion, relegated to the basement of the medical world. He sits by the bedside of the unconscious Johan, venting his frustrations, even wishing out loud that the corrupt men who ruined his life would just disappear. What he didn't know was that Johan was listening. And in the world of Monster, when you make a wish to the devil, he might just grant it. Within days, the hospital director and the senior staff members are found dead. They were poisoned by candy, a silent and untraceable assassination. At the same time, Johan and his sister Anna vanish from their hospital beds without a trace. The police are baffled, and the suspicion falls on Tenma, as he is the only one who benefited from the deaths. He is immediately promoted to chief of surgery. Tenma is horrified, but with no evidence and the children gone, the case goes cold. 9 years pass. Tenma is now a celebrated surgeon, a man of status, yet he still wonders what happened to those twins. He's about to find out, and the discovery will shatter his reality forever. A man named Junkers, a low-level criminal, is brought into the hospital after being hit by a car. He's terrified, rambling about a monster who is coming to kill him. Tenma, being the compassionate soul he is, treats the man and tries to calm him down. But one night, Junkers disappears from his room. Tenma follows him to an abandoned construction site on the outskirts of the city, the air thick with tension and the smell of rain. He finds Junkers cowering in the shadows, staring at a figure standing in the moonlight. It's a young man, beautiful, calm, and radiating an aura of absolute death. It's Johan. Johan looks at Tenma not with hatred, but with a terrifying kind of gratitude. He explains that 9 years ago, he killed those doctors because Tenma wanted them gone. He considers Tenma a father figure, the man who gave him a second chance to continue his work. And then, with a gentle smile that doesn't reach his eyes, Johan raises a gun and executes Junkers right in front of Tenma. The realization hits Tenma like a physical blow to the chest. He didn't just save a boy that night, he saved a predator. He brought back a being that lacks a human soul, a monster who views murder as a casual hobby. As Johan walks away into the darkness, leaving Tenma screaming in the rain, the doctor realizes he has a new mission. He cannot call the police because Johan is a ghost who leaves no footprints. If Tenma was the one who brought this evil into the world, then Tenma is the only one who can take it out. The hunt has officially begun, but how do you catch a man who doesn't exist? Tenma abandons his life, his career, and his scalpel, trading it for a handgun. He becomes a fugitive, chased by a relentless detective named Lunge, who is convinced Tenma is the real killer. But the deeper Tenma digs into Johan's past, the more he realizes that the boy was created in a place where humanity goes to die. The mystery of Johan's origin is a rabbit hole of secret experiments and psychological warfare, and Tenma is just beginning to scratch the surface. But the real nightmare was about to start, because while Tenma is looking for Johan, Johan is also looking for his sister, and he's leaving a trail of bodies behind him to find her. What if the person you loved most was actually the shadow of a demon? Imagine waking up every day living a perfect life, only to realize that your entire identity is a lie built over a graveyard. Tenma is now a man with a gun, hunting a ghost, but he's not the only one whose life is about to be shattered. The twin sister he saved 9 years ago, Anna, has vanished into a new life, totally unaware that her brother is the world's most polite mass murderer. But Johan hasn't forgotten her. In fact, he's coming to claim her for her 20th birthday, and he's planning to leave a trail of corpses as a gift. The question isn't just whether Tenma can find her first, it's whether she can survive the truth of who she really is. The story moves to the beautiful, historic city of Heidelberg, where we meet Nina Fortner. She's a brilliant law student, well-liked, and living with a pair of doting foster parents who treat her like their own flesh and blood. To anyone looking at her, Nina is the picture of success. But Nina has a secret, even from herself. She has no memories of her life before the age of 10. She suffers from inexplicable nightmares, visions of a dark room, and a voice whispering that the world is ending. She thinks it's just stress, but the reality is far more sinister. She is the monster's other half, the mirror image of Johan, and the wall she's built in her mind is about to come crashing down. Tenma, now a fugitive from the law, follows a lead that brings him straight to Nina's doorstep. He's desperate. He knows that if Johan is active again, Nina is his ultimate target. But as he watches her from the shadows, he sees a girl who is truly happy. He hesitates. Should he drag her back into the nightmare? Should he tell her that the brother she doesn't remember is a cold-blooded killer? But the choice is taken out of his hands. Johan has already begun his move. Nina starts receiving mysterious emails, messages that seem like innocent birthday greetings, but contain codes only she could understand. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. Every shadow in Heidelberg starts to look like a threat, and the real nightmare is just beginning. Tenma finally makes contact with Nina, trying to warn her without breaking her spirit. But how do you tell a law student that she's the sister of a serial killer? Nina is skeptical, even frightened of Tenma, seeing him as the man the news calls a murderer. But then the messages become more aggressive. Come to the castle at sunset, they say. It's an invitation to a reunion that Nina isn't prepared for. While Tenma tries to protect her, he is being hunted by Inspector Lunge, a man who tracks killers like a computer, recording every detail with his fingers. Lunge doesn't believe in monsters or ghosts. He believes in evidence, and all the evidence points to Tenma. Tenma is trapped between a killer who is always one step ahead and a detective who refuses to see the truth. The escalation reaches a breaking point on the eve of Nina's 20th birthday. Tenma rushes to the Fortner home, sensing that the gift Johan promised is about to be delivered. He arrives to a scene of absolute silence, the kind of silence that only exists in the presence of death. He finds Nina's foster parents murdered, their lives extinguished with the same clinical precision Johan used 9 years ago. There's no struggle, no mess, just the cold efficiency of a predator. Nina is standing in the middle of the room, her mind fracturing as the suppressed memories begin to leak through the cracks. She remembers the night her biological parents died. She remembers the boy with the bullet in his head. And most importantly, she remembers why she was the one who pulled the trigger. But this was just the beginning of her descent. Nina realizes that Johan isn't just killing for fun. He's cleaning her life, removing anyone who could tether her to a normal existence. He wants her alone, just like him. Tenma finds her and tries to pull her away, but Nina is no longer the innocent law student. The trauma has reawakened a core of steel inside her. She realizes that she is the only one who truly understands what Johan is, and she makes a vow that mirrors Tenma's. She will be the one to end her brother's life. Two people, bound by the same guilt and the same target, are now walking into a storm that will cover all of Germany. As they flee Heidelberg, Tenma realizes the scale of the horror he's dealing with. Johan isn't just a lone wolf, he has influence. He has people who worship him, people who see him as a new kind of leader. Tenma uncovers a lead pointing toward an old orphanage called 511 Kinderheim. It's a place that doesn't appear on any modern maps, a place where the East German government allegedly conducted social engineering experiments on children. This is the birthplace of the monster. This is where Johan was taught that human life has no value. But what Tenma doesn't know is that the survivors of 511 Kinderheim are still out there, and they are either broken shells or loyal soldiers in Johan's invisible army. The real nightmare was about to start because the investigation into 511 Kinderheim opens a door that can never be closed. Tenma is no longer just chasing a killer, he's uncovering a conspiracy that goes to the very roots of the Cold War. And while he searches for the truth, Johan is already onto his next masterpiece, a plan that involves a middle-aged social worker and a city that's about to lose its mind. What if you could erase a child's soul and replace it with pure, calculated logic? We like to believe that monsters are born in the dark, but the truth is much scarier sometimes. They are manufactured in a lab by men in lab coats. But as Tenma is about to learn, some secrets are buried for a reason. Tenma arrives at a small town following a lead on a former official from the East German Ministry of Interior. He's searching for answers, but what he finds is a young boy named Dieter. Dieter is covered in bruises, his eyes vacant and terrified, living under the care of a man named Mr. Hartmann. Hartmann was a high-ranking official at 511 Kinderheim, and he's trying to do to Dieter exactly what was done to Johan years ago. He's trying to build a new leader, a new monster, by stripping away the boy's ability to feel love or pain. But that was just the beginning of the horror. When Tenma confronts Hartmann, he doesn't find a repentant old man. He finds a fanatic. Hartmann speaks of 511 Kinderheim not as a prison, but as a masterpiece of social engineering. He explains that the goal wasn't just to make soldiers, but to create the perfect human who could lead a new world order. But something went wrong. In 1987, a massive riot broke out at the orphanage. The children didn't just rebel, they slaughtered each other and the staff in a frenzied bloodbath of absolute nihilism. And at the center of that massacre, sitting calmly amidst the corpses, was a young Johan Liebert. The escalation is rapid. Tenma realizes that Johan wasn't broken by 511 Kinderheim, he was the one who broke it. Hartmann is terrified because he knows Johan is still out there and he's desperately trying to replicate the success with Dieter. Tenma cannot stand by and watch another life be destroyed. In a tense, emotional confrontation, Tenma rescues Dieter, but the scars on the boy's psyche are deep. Dieter believes the world is a dark, hopeless place because that's all he's ever been taught. The only thing humans are equal in is death. He tells Tenma, echoing the chilling philosophy of Johan. But this is where everything changes for Tenma's resolve. He refuses to let Johan's shadow win. He takes Dieter under his wing, promising the boy that there is more to life than the darkness. It's a beautiful, quiet moment in a series defined by chaos, but it's also a heavy burden. Tenma is now a fugitive, a target, and a guardian to a traumatized child. He continues his journey, moving toward Frankfurt, where a shadowy group of neo-Nazis and ultra-nationalists are starting to whisper Johann's name. They see Johann as the new Hitler, a charismatic blonde-haired youth who can unite the fringe and lead them to power. The tension ratchets up as Tenma enters the murky underworld of Frankfurt. He discovers that these extremists are planning a massive terrorist attack, an arson that will burn down the city's Turkish quarter, all to test Johan and see if he is worthy of being their leader. Tenma is caught in the middle. If he goes to the police, he'll be arrested. If he stays silent, thousands will die. But the real nightmare was about to start. Tenma encounters a man named the Baby, a small, grotesque leader of the movement who believes he can control Johan. He thinks he can use the monster for his own ends. It's a classic mistake, and the price of that mistake is going to be paid in blood and fire. As the night of the Great Fire approaches, Tenma finds himself working alongside an unlikely ally, an old, world-weary journalist named Maurer. Together, they try to stop the arson, but they are dealing with a cult of personality that has already infected the highest levels of the city's power structure. Tenma realizes that Johan isn't just a killer. He's an infection. He finds people's hidden desires, their secret hatreds, and he gives them permission to act on them. The fire isn't just coming for the buildings, it's coming for the morality of everyone in Frankfurt. And in the middle of it all, Tenma has to make a choice. Can he remain a doctor and save lives, or must he finally become a killer to stop the fire? The resolution of this arc is a bitter pill. Tenma manages to prevent the worst of the massacre, but at a staggering cost. People he tried to protect are dead, and the Baby and his associates realize too late that Johan isn't their puppet, they are his. Johan wasn't interested in their ideology. He just wanted to watch them burn their own house down. Tenma stands in the glowing embers of the city, looking at his hands. He saved Dieter, but the world is still falling apart. He realizes that as long as Johan exists, there will be no peace. He has to find the one person who can tell him the truth about Johan's very first memory, his mother. But the hunt for the mother leads to a realization that is even more terrifying than 511 Kinderheim. Because while Tenma is looking for the past, Nina is looking for the future, and she's already found a lead that points to a mysterious book of fairy tales. A book that shouldn't exist, written by a man who might be the real father of all this evil. Stories are meant to teach children how to live. But what if a story was written specifically to teach a child how to die? We grow up believing that books are a safe haven for the imagination, but for Johan Liebert, a simple picture book was the blueprint for the end of the world. Tenma has traveled across a fractured Germany, dodging the police and risking his life to find the root of Johan's evil, and all roads lead to a single, haunting piece of literature. It's a book that shouldn't exist, found in a room that was meant to stay hidden forever. But as Tenma flips through the pages of The Monster Without a Name, he realizes that Johan isn't just a killer, he's a character in a fairy tale that has escaped into the real world. The most terrifying part isn't the story itself, it's that the story is still being written, and Tenma is the next person scheduled to be erased from the plot. Tenma, along with young Dieter, arrives in the city of Munich, a place of immense wealth and even deeper secrets. While Tenma is trying to find the author of the cursed picture book, the narrative shifts to a man named Hans-Georg Schuwald. Schuwald is a billionaire, a titan of industry known as the Vampire of Munich because he lives in total seclusion, pulling the strings of the German economy from his library. He's powerful, he's blind, and he's lonely. He's the perfect target for a predator like Johan. And this is where everything changes, because Johan hasn't just found Schuwald, he's become his right hand, his eyes, and his most trusted confidant. Tenma realizes that if Johan controls Schuwald, he effectively controls the heart of Germany. But he's not the only one closing in. We are introduced to Richard Brown, a disgraced police detective who is working as a private investigator for Schuwald. Richard is a man seeking redemption. He's a recovering alcoholic who once killed a criminal in cold blood and has spent every day since trying to prove he's still a good cop. He's hired to investigate the mysterious deaths of Schuwald's former associates, and his instincts lead him straight to the polite, golden-haired young man sitting in Schuwald's study. Richard is good at his job, too good. He begins to see the patterns that even the most advanced computers missed. He realizes that every person who stood in Johan's way has met with a tragic accident. But that was just the beginning of the psychological war. Johan doesn't try to kill Richard with a gun or a knife. He doesn't need to. He kills him with the truth. In one of the most chilling sequences in the series, Johan confronts Richard on a rooftop, offering him a drink, a bottle of the very whiskey that ruined Richard's life. Johan speaks with a voice like silk, dissecting Richard's guilt, his failures, and his deepest fears. He makes Richard realize that even if he catches the monster, he will never be able to forgive himself for the life he took. It's a masterclass in manipulation. Johan doesn't pull the trigger. He convinces Richard that there is no reason to keep living. When Richard's body is found on the pavement the next morning, the world calls it a relapse and a suicide. But Tenma knows better. He knows that Johan is cleaning the board, removing anyone who can see through his mask. While Richard's tragedy unfolds, Nina Fortner is also in Munich, following her own trail of blood. She's no longer the scared law student we met in Heidelberg. She's become a hunter, her eyes cold and her resolve absolute. But the closer she gets, the more she feels the monster inside her own mind waking up. She starts to have flashes of a place called the Red Rose Mansion. She remembers a room full of people who died while drinking tea. She remembers a man with a pen, drawing pictures of monsters eating each other. She realizes that her and Johan's childhood wasn't just a series of experiments, it was a ritual. The pacing reaches a fever pitch as a massive ceremony is planned at the Munich University Library. Schuwald is donating his entire collection to the city, and the event will be attended by the elite of Germany. Tenma knows this is the perfect stage for Johan's next masterpiece. He believes Johan plans to assassinate Schuwald in front of the world. Armed with a sniper rifle and a heavy heart, Tenma takes a position overlooking the library. He's ready to do the one thing he swore he'd never do, take a human life to save thousands. But what he didn't know was that Johan wasn't looking for a political statement. Johan was looking for a bonfire. But the real nightmare was about to start. As the ceremony begins, the doors are locked from the outside. The library, filled with priceless books and the country's most powerful leaders, is turned into a tinderbox. Johan didn't want to kill Schuwald. He wanted to destroy the world Schuwald represented. He wanted to burn the history, the records, and the memories of everyone in that room. In the middle of the chaos, Johan stands calmly, looking directly into the scope of Tenma's rifle. He's not hiding. He's inviting Tenma to pull the trigger. He's daring the good doctor to become just like him. Tenma hesitates. His finger trembles on the trigger. In that split second, he sees the reflection of the boy he saved 9 years ago. The library erupts into flames, and the screams of the trapped guests fill the air. Tenma has to choose. Does he stay and finish the job, or does he run into the fire to save the people Johan is trying to kill? It's the ultimate test of Tenma's soul. He drops the rifle and chooses life, rushing into the burning building to lead the survivors to safety. He saves Schuwald, he saves Karl, but Johan vanishes into the smoke, a ghost once again. The resolution of the Munich arc leaves Tenma more broken than ever. He saved lives, but he let the devil escape. However, he didn't come away empty-handed. In the ashes of the library, he finds a clue, a name that was whispered in the picture book and etched into the walls of the Red Rose Mansion. Franz Bonaparte. The man who wrote the story, the man who started it all. Tenma realizes that to kill the monster, he doesn't need a gun. He needs to find the man who created the monster's heart. But the hunt for Bonaparte will lead Tenma across the border into the Czech Republic, into a city of shadows where the secret police still rule from the darkness. And as Tenma crosses that line, he's about to meet a man named Grimmer, a man who has no emotions, no memories, and a magnificent Steiner hiding inside him. What if you woke up one day and realized you had forgotten how to cry? Imagine your child dies, your wife leaves you, and your world collapses, but the only thing you can do is keep smiling because you literally don't know how to feel sadness. This is the tragic reality of Wolfgang Grimmer, a man who survived the same psychological hell as Johann, but emerged as a broken shell of a human instead of a demon. Tenma has crossed the border into the Czech Republic, entering the winding, shadow-drenched streets of Prague to find the origins of a monster, but instead, he finds a man who has lost his soul. But as the investigation into the secret police and the Red Rose Mansion deepens, Tenma is about to learn that when you push a man with no emotions too far, something else wakes up inside him, something far more violent than even the magnificent Steiner. The story takes place in Prague, a city where the echoes of the Soviet era still linger in every cold alleyway and gray apartment block. Tenma is on a mission to find the birth records of the twins and the identity of Franz Bonaparte, the man who wrote the nightmare-inducing picture books. But he isn't alone in his search. He meets Wolfgang Grimmer on a train, a freelance journalist with a permanent friendly smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. Grimmer is charming, helpful, and seemingly innocent, but under that exterior lies a survivor of 511 Kinderheim. Unlike Johann, who became a leader of chaos, Grimmer became a man who cannot feel. He carries a notebook to remind himself how to react to social cues, when to laugh, when to look concerned, and when to mimic grief. He is a walking ghost, searching for his own lost childhood in the archives of the St. B, the former Czechoslovak secret police. Tenma and Grimmer's paths align when they realize they are both hunting the same thing. The truth about the Red Rose Mansion. This was a place where elites gathered to hear readings of Bonaparte's books, a place where children were subjected to psychological conditioning that would make 511 Kinderheim look like a playground. But as they dig deeper, they realize they aren't the only ones interested in the past. The former members of the St. B are being systematically murdered. Someone is cleaning Prague, erasing the witnesses of the experiments before Tenma can get to them. And this is where everything changes. The police, led by a corrupt detective named Suk, begin to suspect Tenma and Grimmer of the murders, forcing them into a desperate game of cat and mouse, but that was just the beginning of the horror. Grimmer finds himself cornered by the remnants of the secret police who want the Petrov Files documents that contain the full history of the experiments. Grimmer is a pacifist. He hates violence and wants nothing more than to help people. But when the thugs begin to threaten a group of innocent children, the smile finally disappears. Grimmer experiences a blackout, a psychological break where a secondary personality takes over. He calls it the Magnificent Steiner, named after a hero from a TV show he watched as a kid. When Grimmer wakes up, the room is covered in blood, and the professional killers who attacked him are unrecognizable corpses. Grimmer stares at his bloody hands, horrified, realizing that the monster isn't just in Johann, it's a seed planted in every child who survived the experiments. The escalation moves from the streets to the very heart of the mystery. Tenma finally discovers the location of the Red Rose Mansion, a hidden estate where the walls are painted with haunting murals of monsters and flowers. It was here that Johann and Nina were kept as children, and it was here that they were forced to witness things that no human mind should endure. But as Tenma explores the ruins, he realizes that Johann has already been there. In fact, Johann is still in Prague, but he isn't hiding in the shadows this time. Johann has disguised himself as his sister, Nina, using her identity to manipulate high-ranking officials and lead them to their dooms. The psychological warfare has reached a level of terrifying perfection. Johann isn't just killing people anymore, he's erasing the very concept of self. But the real nightmare was about to start. While Tenma is focused on the mansion, Inspector Lunge has also arrived in Prague. Lunge, the man who has spent years trying to arrest Tenma, is finally starting to see the cracks in his own logic. He begins to follow the trail of the picture books, and for the first time, the human computer starts to feel fear. He realizes that Tenma isn't the killer, but his pride won't let him admit it yet. Instead, he goes to the source. He finds the old, hidden room of Franz Bonaparte. There, he discovers that the stories weren't just fiction, they were blueprints for a new world order, a world where names don't matter and individual identity is a burden to be discarded. Lunge realizes that he isn't just chasing a murderer, he's chasing a ghost that has been haunting Europe for decades. As the secrets of the Saint Bee are laid bare, Tenma and Grimmer find themselves at a crossroads. Grimmer realizes that his magnificent Steiner is a defense mechanism for a heart that was broken too early, while Tenma realizes that his role as a doctor is effectively over. He cannot cure what happened in the Red Rose Mansion with a scalpel. The resolution of this arc is a somber one. The Petrov files are destroyed, the witnesses are dead, and the only lead left is the mother of the twins, who is rumored to be hiding in a small, isolated town near the border. Tenma knows he is close to the end, but the weight of the bodies behind him is starting to take its toll. He is no longer the man who saved a boy in Dusseldorf. He is a man who has seen the abyss and is waiting for it to blink. The final moments of this chapter reveal the most haunting truth of all. Johan didn't just want to find his past, he wanted to destroy it so that he could be the last person standing at the end of the world. He wants a world of absolute silence, where there is no one left to remember his name. And he's already moving toward the final stage of his plan, a quiet massacre in a town called Ruhenheim. But the real nightmare was about to start because Nina has finally regained her full memory. She remembers the choice their mother made on the bridge, and that one piece of truth changes everything we thought we knew about the monster. It's the moment that birthed the devil. We've seen Johan murder without a flinch, and we've seen him manipulate the world like a game of chess, but we never knew why. Now, the veil is finally being lifted, and the truth is more horrifying than any experiment conducted in a secret lab. Tenma is closing in on the mother of the twins, hoping for an answer that can stop the bloodshed, but Nina has already found the memory she buried for a decade. It wasn't just the Red Rose Mansion that broke them, it was the realization that their own mother couldn't tell them apart, or worse, that she chose to throw one of them into the abyss to save the other. But as the past comes into focus, a new player enters the game, and she's the only person alive who can identify Johan's face, Eva Heinemann. The story takes place in a world where the ghosts of the past are finally catching up to the living. Tenma is a shell of the man he once was, his hands no longer just those of a healer, but those of a hunter. He's back in Germany, following the trail of a woman who has been hiding in the shadows for 20 years, the twins' mother. This is where everything changes. If Johan's entire identity is built on a lie, then his goal isn't just murder, it's the total erasure of a world that couldn't even give him a name. But the real nightmare was about to start for someone else entirely. Eva Heinemann, the woman who once had everything and threw it away out of spite, has hit absolute rock bottom. She's an alcoholic, a wanderer, and a woman consumed by a toxic mix of love and hatred for Tenma. But she's also dangerous. She saw Johan's face at the hospital 9 years ago, and she saw him again in Munich. To the shadowy organization protecting Johan, she is a loose end that needs to be tied off. Enter Roberto, a man who is the physical embodiment of Johan's will. Roberto isn't a genius or a poet, he's a professional killer who enjoys the process. He begins a cold, calculated hunt for Eva, turning her life into a waking nightmare. Every corner she turns, every bar she hides in, the shadow of the monster is right behind her. She's saved at the last second by an unlikely protector, Dr. Ruhenheim, a psychologist and friend of Tenma who has become a key player in the fight against Johan. Ruhenheim is a man of logic and empathy, a stark contrast to the nihilism of the world around him. He takes Eva into hiding, trying to sober her up and convince her to testify. But Eva is a broken woman. She doesn't want justice. She wants revenge. She wants to see Tenma suffer as much as she has. It's a tragic, high-stakes game of psychological chicken. If Eva speaks, the world learns the truth. If she dies, the last witness to Johan's existence vanishes. Meanwhile, Inspector Lunge is undergoing a transformation that no one expected. The human computer has finally malfunctioned. His obsession with Tenma has cost him his job, his family, and his reputation. He is now a rogue agent, wandering through Europe with nothing but his memories. But in his isolation, Lunge has found something the police missed: the humanity behind the crime. He stops looking at data and starts looking at the soul. He begins to visit the locations of the picture books, standing in the same spots where Franz Bonaparte once stood. He realizes that the monster isn't a person, but a legacy of pain. For the first time, Lunge begins to feel a shred of empathy for Tenma. He realizes that they are both victims of the same ghost. But that was just the beginning of the escalation. As the various threads Tenma, Nina, Ava, and Lunge begin to pull toward the same center, Johan is already 10 steps ahead. He isn't running. He's inviting them. He begins to send gifts to those who are searching for him. To Nina, he sends a reminder of their childhood home. To Tenma, he sends a trail of bodies that leads closer and closer to the border. He is orchestrating a grand finale, a reunion that will take place in the middle of nowhere. He wants everyone who has ever touched his life to be present for the end of the world. The psychological pressure is suffocating. Tenma realizes that every move he makes is exactly what Johan wants him to do. The narrative shifts toward a small, isolated town in the mountains, a place that feels disconnected from time. This is where the twins' mother is rumored to be. But the town is full of secrets, and the residents are terrified of the outsiders. Tenma arrives, exhausted and desperate, only to find that he's been followed. Not by Johan, but by the organization that wants to turn Johan into a political weapon. They believe they can control the monster, unaware that the monster has already devoured them from the inside. The tension reaches a breaking point as a shootout erupts in the quiet streets, shattering the peace and proving that there is no place safe from the reach of the devil. Johan has arrived there first, and he didn't bring an army, he brought a few whispers and a suitcase full of weapons. He is about to perform his final experiment, proving that if you take away a person's trust, the monster inside them will do the rest. As the clouds gather and the phone lines go dead, Tenma realizes he's not just walking into a trap, he's walking into the end of humanity itself. The story takes place in the secluded, rain-drenched valley of Ruhenheim, a town that feels like it's been frozen in time since the war. It's picturesque, quiet, and filled with elderly people who just want to be left alone. But this is the place where Franz Bonaparte, the man who started this whole nightmare, has been hiding for decades under a false name. Tenma arrives with a heavy heart, his sniper rifle hidden in his coat, knowing that this is the final stop. But he isn't the only one who has found the town. Wolfgang Grimmer is already there, following his own lead, and Inspector Lunge is closing in, his mechanical mind finally piecing together the true identity of the man behind the picture books. The stage is set for a massive collision of fates, but Johan has already begun the play. Everything changes when the perfect suicide begins. Johan doesn't go house to house killing people. Instead, he finds the town's secrets. He finds the man who hates his neighbor over a land dispute. He finds the woman who fears the outsiders are coming to take her home. He gives them guns, whispers a few words about protection, and then steps back. Slowly, the atmosphere in Ruhenheim shifts from peaceful to paranoid. A single gunshot rings out in the fog, and suddenly, the townspeople aren't neighbors anymore, they're targets. It's a terrifying chain reaction of fear. This is Johan's masterpiece, a massacre where he doesn't have to pull a single trigger. But that was just the beginning of the escalation. As the rain begins to pour, turning the streets into rivers of mud, Grimmer finds himself caught in the middle of a localized civil war. He tries to protect the children of the town, but the magnificent Steiner is clawing at the walls of his mind. Grimmer is desperate to remain human, to handle this with a smile and a kind word, but when he sees an innocent life snuffed out by a senseless bullet, the smile finally breaks forever. He realizes that in a world without names, there is only one language everyone understands: violence. Meanwhile, Lunge and Tenma finally cross paths in the town square. There's no arrest, no handcuffs. Lunge simply looks at Tenma and admits the truth: I was wrong. It's a moment of profound payoff, but there's no time to celebrate. The town is burning and the devil is waiting. The tension ratchets up to an unbearable level as the vampire of Ruhenheim is revealed. Franz Bonaparte is no longer a powerful mastermind. He's a terrified old man living in the local hotel, haunted by the monsters he created. When Tenma finds him, he doesn't find a villain to slay, he finds a man who has already been destroyed by his own guilt. Bonaparte realizes that Johan has come to Ruhenheim to kill him, but not out of revenge. Johan wants to kill the only man who knows his real name so that he can truly become the monster without a name. The psychological weight of the scene is staggering. Tenma, the healer, is now standing between a man who deserves to die and a killer who wants to erase history. But the real nightmare was about to start. Nina arrives in Ruhenheim, her memories fully restored and her heart set on a final confrontation. Nina realizes that the trauma wasn't just about the Red Rose Mansion. It was about the fact that their mother made a choice on a bridge, and that choice left one twin with a soul and the other with a void. Johan isn't just killing for fun. He's trying to prove that the void is the only thing that's real. As the body count in Ruhenheim rises, the core characters are drawn into the final circle. Grimmer, Lunge, Tenma, and Nina are all moving toward the same point of no return. Grimmer makes the ultimate sacrifice, using his final moments to reclaim his emotions, dying not as a magnificent Steiner, but as a man who finally remembered how to cry. His death is the emotional anchor of the arc, a reminder that even in Johan's world, humanity can win. But Johan is unmoved. He is waiting for Tenma. He wants the man who saved his life to be the one who finally ends it. The resolution of this part of the nightmare is the start of the final standoff. Tenma finds Johan in the rain, standing over a dying Bonaparte. Johan puts a gun to a child's head and looks Tenma in the eye. He isn't threatening the child to save himself. He's threatening the child to force Tenma to kill him. He wants to prove that everyone, even the kindest doctor in the world, is a monster deep down. Tenma's finger is on the trigger. The cycle that began in a hospital room in Dusseldorf is about to end in a blood-soaked village in the mountains. But what happens next is something even Johan didn't predict. Because while Tenma is struggling with his conscience, a drunk, terrified villager stumbles into the clearing with a rifle. And in a split second of absolute randomness, the perfect suicide is interrupted by a stray bullet. The most terrifying thing about the devil isn't that he exists, it's that he might be right about us. For 74 episodes, we've watched Dr. Kenzo Tenma chase a ghost across Europe, trying to fix a mistake he made with a scalpel 9 years ago. Now, in the mud and the blood of a dying town called Ruhenheim, the chase is over. But as the trigger is pulled, we realize that Johan's plan was never about survival. It was about proving that the good doctor is no different from the monster. This is the finale of the ultimate psychological game, and the winner isn't the one who stays alive. It's the one who stays human. The monster falls, not by the hand of justice, but by the hand of the very chaos he created. But that was just the beginning of the real horror. As Johan lies dying in the mud, Nina arrives. She doesn't come with hatred, but with forgiveness. She tells Johan that she remembers everything, the bridge, the choice, the mansion, and she forgives him. It's a moment of pure, agonizing grace that Johan never factored into his calculations. Tenma, the man who spent years training to kill this boy, suddenly finds himself back where he started, a surgeon with a dying patient. Despite everything, despite the bodies, the ruined lives, and the years of running, Tenma's instinct takes over. He doesn't let Johan die. He doesn't let the monster have his perfect suicide. He chooses to be a doctor one last time, even if it means saving the devil for the second time. The escalation moves from the battlefield to the aftermath. The police arrive, the massacre is contained, and the world begins to piece itself together. Inspector Lunge, the man who once thought he was a machine, finally finds peace. He clears Tenma's name, admitting his own failures, and visits the grave of Wolfgang Grimmer. It's a somber, beautiful resolution for the supporting cast. We see Nina graduating, moving on with her life, finally free from the shadow of her brother. We see Ava finding a shred of dignity. It feels like a happy ending. It feels like the nightmare is over. But Kenzo Tenma knows better. He knows that as long as Johan is alive, the story isn't finished. Tenma visits a high-security police hospital, walking down a long, sterile hallway to a private room. Inside, Johan Liebert is lying in a bed, his head wrapped in bandages, looking as innocent and beautiful as the day Tenma first saw him. He's in a coma, a vegetable who might never wake up. Tenma sits by his side and speaks to him. He tells Johan about the mother they found. He tells him the truth about that day on the bridge, that their mother didn't choose to give one up. She was struggling, she was confused, and she might have been trying to save both of them in her own broken way. Tenma offers Johan a name, a real identity, a way back into the world of the living. But the real nightmare was about to start. As Tenma speaks, Johan's eyes snap open. In a chilling hallucinogenic sequence, Johan speaks to Tenma one last time, or perhaps it's just Tenma's conscience speaking back to him. Johan asks a final, haunting question. Who was the unwanted one? Was it me or was it my sister? At that moment, which one did my mother try to save? It's a question that challenges the very foundation of love and memory. Tenma blinks, and when he looks again, Johan is silent. Was it a dream? Was it a ghost? Tenma leaves the room, shaken to his core, but still believing he did the right thing by saving a life. The resolution delivered in the final moments of the series is what has kept fans debating for decades. Tenma walks away, returning to his life as a doctor, but as the camera pans back to Johan's hospital room, the window is open, the curtains are fluttering in the breeze. And the bed is empty, the monster is gone. Did he wake up and walk out? Did he vanish into the air? Or was he never really caught to begin with? The story ends in a world where the monster is still out there, not as a person, but as a possibility. Johan's empty bed is the ultimate curiosity gap. It tells us that evil can't be locked in a room or killed with a bullet. It's something that lives in the choices we make and the names we forget. Tenma saved a life, and in doing so, he saved his own humanity, but he also let the mystery of the human soul remain unsolved. So, was Tenma a hero for saving a life, or a fool for letting the devil back into the world? The bed is empty, the window is open, and the monster is gone. Maybe Johan didn't escape to kill again. Maybe he escaped because he finally realized that in a world of names and memories, he no longer had a place to hide. But one thing is certain. Kenzo Tenma didn't just save a patient, he saved his own soul by refusing to become a murderer. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the darkest corners of the human psyche, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got more psychological breakdowns and legendary anime recaps coming your way that you definitely don't want to miss. But wait, the story of Johan Liebert isn't the only nightmare born from a laboratory. Next time, we're looking at another masterpiece where the line between human and weapon is blurred beyond recognition. What happens when the government tries to create a god only to realize they've built a cage they can't lock? Stay tuned, because the next mystery is even more twisted than the last. Until then, remember, be careful who you save. You never know what they'll do with their second chance.